Welcome back to Jack of All Games Tabletop. I'm Dave Wallace, and today it's another miniatures painting tips for noobs video, and along with that we'll be going through some cheap items that will help you up your game and things that you can probably find in your own hometown. Real easy, real cheap. Sometimes you can find them for free around the house. If you are an established miniature painter, if you're already hooked into the hobby, or if you're painting on a regular basis, maybe you're a professional, you're selling your stuff, you probably already have most of these items or have tried them or have better, more expensive versions of them, because that's what happens when you get into this hobby. Once you're hooked, like all things, it's a money pit, and you end up going all in. But most of these things, like I said, this is mostly for noobs, because I still see regularly every day on miniature painting Facebook groups, people that will jump in, they'll say, new to the hobby, what should I get? And this time of year, you're seeing a lot of people saying, my husband just got into it, my wife just got into it, my kids just got into it, what should I get them? So we're going to go over some things that I said, really cheap, easy things to find that will really kind of help make a difference in your miniature painting and how the outcome of that is. Now, I will say, if there is one area that you should not cheap out on, I firmly believe that it is the paints. You should have good quality paints. I use almost exclusively Pro Acryl. This is just a great brand of paint. I have a whole rack full of these things, and every color they make, plus extras in case I run out of certain colors. Because I'm already really hooked in the hobby, and I do this kind of on the side, somewhat professionally. But I also use some Citadels. I also have some Scale 75, some Vallejos, Army Painter. So, I mean, there's a lot of great brands out there, and you should, give them a try and see what you like. But that's the area that I think you don't want to cheap out on. You don't want to go getting some dollar store paints. You don't want to get something just because it's the cheapest when it comes to paint. Instead, first tip would be to just get the bare minimums. Get your primary colors, your black and your white, maybe a flesh tone or a brown, and some silver for some of your metal. But definitely don't cheap out. You don't have to get 90 colors to start off with. Just get a few colors and make sure. You just download a color wheel on your phone and figure out how to mix and blend stuff with the bare minimums, because if you're doing a decent paint job with the good paints to start off with, then you'll know that you'll like it and you'll want to buy more. Whereas you go get some cheap stuff in, it's really not going to coat well, you're going to have thin spots, it's just not going to come out smoothly, and you're going to be unhappy, and you're going to quit before you even find out what your potential is. And as far as saving money with those paints, be sure to be sparing with when you pour out some of your paint. You don't need to, sorry, I'm a tattoo artist, I'm thinking inks. You don't have to put a big glob on there and then, find out that you use too much and it sits there and goes bad. Pour out a little tiny bit, see how far it takes you. You can always just add more, it's not a big deal. So just be sparing with your paints when you first start and kind of get the hang of how much you're going to need. And you should also have a couple of decent paint brushes. You don't have to have 20 sable brushes to start off with. You can, one or two is not a bad idea. But you can go to Michael's and get some decent watercolor paint brushes. These Aqua Elites, they're pretty decent paint brushes. They're not going to last as long as a sable, but if you take care of them, I mean, they'll do a pretty good job. Get the individual paint brushes. When you go to Michael's and you see those packs of, here's 15 brushes for $3. No, don't get those. It's just going to be a waste of your time. Another side tip with taking care of your brushes and extending the life on them is after you've rinsed them off and you're trying to keep them clean, don't set them in a cup to sit with the point up. Their ends are going to get bad that way. If you don't have a way of possibly hanging them point down, you can always just lay them flat. lay them flat on the table. That's much better than point up. So bear those things in mind. Now let's actually get to the items that we're going to talk about for getting around. Like I said, these are things that you can get cheap and you can get away with using them. Now the first one I'm going to talk about is probably the least important on this list, but it can come in handy, especially if you are assembling and building Warhammer, anything with guns. Get yourself a little pin drill. You can get these $8 to $10, and it's usually a little hand drill like this, and it comes with you know, a bunch of little drill bits, and you can use these to put a little divot at least at the end of your gun barrel. It just looks more like a gun than the way that they come. You don't have to drill out the whole barrel. You're going to end up going crooked. Best bet is just make a little bit of a divot, at least enough for it to look like an actual gun barrel. Also, when it comes to painting Warhammer, a lot of people like to paint different parts separately, especially the heads. So you can, you know, if I'm, you know, I used all this stuff that I'm talking about today on this little Warhammer guy. Let me see if I can get him in focus there. You know, if I was painting his head, you know, it's a little tricky to get around some areas because of the sword in the way and stuff. So a lot of people like to paint the head separately. And you can use the pin drill, and you can put a little hole in the bottom, super glue in a paper clip, and that way you can kind of hold the head still as you're actually painting and getting the fine details and get up close to it without any hindrance. So like I said, probably not the most important thing on the list today, but yeah, these little pin drills, they come in really handy. Not that expensive. You can get these Amazon, of course, but you can also get them in like Hobby Lobby, probably like Harbor Freight. Walmart even might have a little pin vice drill. I believe it's what they're called. But yeah, pretty handy little tools. Like I said, not the most important, but definitely useful. All right, so if you've been watching any other paint videos at all, trying to pick up the hobby, you're going to know that one of the things you're going to need for your paints is a wet palette. And they make a lot of nice ones. I've got this one that I keep in my mobile case all the time, and it's a pretty nice little wet palette. It's got this little sponge in it, still damp actually, and easy to travel with. Works great. These things they usually run anywhere from 25 to 30 bucks, sometimes even more for some of these. It works great, but it's totally not necessary, especially when you're just getting started. I would suggest going to the dollar store and getting yourself some Tupperware. What I use the most at home when I'm painting is a Tupperware bin like this. You'll see the video here where I'm getting one ready. But yeah, you just take one of these things, get a couple sheets of paper towel, put it down on the bottom, and soak it so it's just enough to where the paper towel is wet. You don't want any standing water there, just kind of drain anything out. You take your hydration paper, set it on top of it. Works exactly the same. I don't care what anybody says. If you're, need paint sitting on there for a week, you're doing something wrong anyway. So plan accordingly. You don't need all that. Go to the dollar store, get one of these for, $2 or $3 with the lid to seal it, keep it wet for a couple days, sometimes longer. And, if that $2 is too much, go in the kitchen and dig around in the cabinets and find some Tupperware. It'll work fine, I promise. Like I said, that's what I use most of the time still, and have no problems with it. All right, so you got your palette ready, and your mini is built and primed, and you're ready to do a little bit of dry brushing. You can get some really nice professional grade dry brush sets, and they can go anywhere from $15 to $30, sometimes more if you got somebody who made a killer set who has a popular YouTube channel. And absolutely, they are great brushes. So I don't mean to say anything negative about any sets out there. Really good sets can be worth the money, but again, you're new. You don't want to spend a ton of money and then find out that you don't really dig miniature painting. So get yourself some little set of makeup brushes. You can get these things for super cheap. You can get a little box of these things for like, 10 bucks, sometimes less. Or what you can do is you can wait until your wife is watching Outlander and sneak into her bathroom while she's being distracted by shirtless Scotsmen and just steal one from her collection. So this is what a little makeup brush looks like. Works great for dry brush. It's maybe not as high quality, but again, I still use these all the time, and I still have some nice quality ones too, but I use these all the time and they work just fine. So get yourself some makeup brushes for cheap or maybe nothing. Now, of course, when I'm dry brushing, the first thing I do is knock off some of the paint on the side of my little Tupperware there, as much as I can. But then you're going to need to get it a little bit more so that you can get it to where it's a real light coating on your miniatures. You could spend money on a nice dry brush palette if you really wanted to, or a little textured mat that goes on your desk, and you can use that. There's lots of ways that people can make them, but really all you need is some styrofoam. This week, sometime, Amazon's gonna come to your house for something. There's probably some styrofoam in a box somewhere. Grab yourself some styrofoam now. I made one of these little stupid kits because everyone was doing it. I was like, oh, cool, I gotta make that. So I took some styrofoam and I glued a whole bunch of stuff and put some texture paint and some old minis and some sprue and stuff in here so that I could use that to knock it off. And 90% of the time I just wipe it off on the styrofoam itself. It's textured. It works just fine. So yeah, just a piece of styrofoam. That's all you need to help get a lot of this off. There's not even need to quote a price. It's styrofoam. You got some somewhere. It's free. All right. So once you get the model dry brushed and ready to go, you're ready to start your speed paints. Well, you need something to put in. You can't put speed paint in your wet palette. So you can get, some little fancy metal cups, or you can get a little palette, or you can just go to the dollar store and get one of these stupid little pop-up toys. These things are great because you can just pour your paint in, let it sit overnight. When it's done, you can just pop it out and flip to the other side. Works awesome. Really good, for your cleanup, and then you get these kind of little rings of the dried paint out from the next day. So these things work phenomenal, and they're super cheap. And if you can't find one, go into your kids' room and step over like 3 different piles of clothes until you get to about the 4th pile, and then lift up a pair of dirty socks and you'll find one of these on here. Now, an extra tip about these things. If you can get one white, do it. Speed paints, they tend to be a little more condensed when they come out of the bottle, and dark. They're a lot darker when you first put them in there. So when you put them against these kind of darker rainbow colors, sometimes if you don't keep track of where you put them, it's easy to accidentally pick the wrong one. Brown and the purple and the gray, they can all kind of look the same. So if you can find one of these pop-up toys in white, it's really quite helpful. But yeah, super cheap, easy to use, and again, like I said, you just let it sit out overnight when you're done, and the next morning just pop out the other side and get rid of the waste. So your paint job's looking pretty good. And as you're looking at them, you're just like, man, it's got all these little edges on them. You really want to make those edges kind of pop. And of course, you can just do that by, paintbrush. But if you want a little bit more control, get yourself some of these watercolor pencils. These are great to use. You can just sharpen it and then kind of get in the end, little tiny parts, or you can use the edge of it to kind of run along an edge. Pick a color that's a little bit lighter than the color that your base painted it, and they look really nice. I use it on all, mostly like my leathers and the edges of some of the armor and stuff like that. But yeah, they works fantastic, and the best thing about it is if you go a little bit overboard, you can probably just wipe it off with your thumb, or even better, you can kind of spread it out and make it fade a little bit more just by getting a little bit of water on a paintbrush, and you can smooth it out. It's what those pencils are made for, is to be able to spread over canvas or paper, so you can do it on the minis too. So if you want to try kind of fading your edges out that way, just put a little paint on there after you put the pencil on those edges and smooth it out. Looks fantastic. And finally, let's just talk about eyes. A lot of people still, even as much info as there is about how to do eyes right, a lot of people are going to struggle with it. When it comes to this size, I can still do pretty decent, but any smaller than this, when you get to like 28 millimeter, it's a pain in the ass for my old eyes to see everything very clearly. But there are some tricks to that. Number one, as far as a tip before you get to the iris and the pupils, is just the whites of the eyes. It's still a really small space to fit in there with the paintbrush. So what I would suggest is you're probably going to do a couple layers, a couple tones on your flesh. So do one layer of flesh color, your base, first over the whole thing. And then before you do any more flesh tones, do your whites in your eyes. Because it's much easier to get your paint to come just up to the eyes than it is to stay inside that little spot for the whites of the eyes. If you do them. Now at this size, I still do whites and maybe even a little dot of color for the iris. But again, with the 28 millimeter, especially if I'm just, I'm not using these for, well, this one in particular I just put together for this video. But if it comes to like game board pieces, it's more about being tabletop ready. It's not necessarily about, like, I'm not trying to win a contest or anything. So if it's any smaller than this, I don't even bother with the whites of the eyes. If you look at somebody from a far distance, you see a dark mark there. You don't see the whites of people's eyes unless they get like bug eyes. But if you want to try to put the whites in there, just do it that way. Just put the whites over your first tone of flesh tones, and then start painting the tans. And if you nail it the first time, great. But if you don't, you can just fix it with a little bit of flesh on the edges. Works fantastic. But as far as the pupils, and sometimes even use this on eyeliner, you can use it on eyebrows sometimes. I'm pretty sure I use it on this guy's little angry eyebrows. Let's see, Micron. Here we go. Upside down, isn't it? Let's go this way. Let's try that way. Where are you at? There you are. Micron 0.005. Much better control with this than any kind of paintbrush. So definitely get yourself Micron. You can get these anywhere. You can get these at Walmart. You can get it at Michael's. They work great. They last a long time. I've done entire posters with Microns, and they work fine for just kind of pressing that little point into where you want the eyes. Kind of help you not get those Marty Feldman eyes looking out two different ways. So Micron definitely is a big one. If you're struggling with eyes, try Micron. So that's going to be it for this time. Just some handy tips there. It's just in time for Christmas. You got people out there who are wanting some stuff. Get them a bunch of stuff for next to nothing. Stuff around the house, stuff from the dollar store. And say, hey man, this is to help you out with your miniature painting. And these are all little things that will help make a difference for a little bit of money. And that way, if it goes south and you're like, didn't really get into it, no big loss. You go buying a whole line of, the best Vallejo paints or Citadel pots, and then find out that, I kind of suck at this, or, I just don't really like it. Especially if you don't like it, then it's just going to be a waste. You're going to be trying to sell it off on somewhere. So let me know if you've tried any of these techniques, if you like any of, anything that you do on a regular basis. Any other tips that you want me to talk about on here sometime, go ahead and put it down in the comments. That's going to be it for right now. You got time to get some stuff painted just before Christmas. So see you next time.
Hey gamers, thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate all the support. It's one of the things I know that I can count on with the gaming community at large. This is of course to the point where I gotta ask you to like it, hit that subscribe button and maybe share this with a friend. If you are a game designer or maybe starting your own gaming company and you want to do a little bit of cross promotion, maybe you got a prototype that you want me to check out and talk about on the show, definitely let me know. And of course, for all questions, suggestions, and corrections, there's all kinds of ways to get a hold of me. Probably the easiest one is just comment below. You can also send me an email at jackofallgamestt@gmail.com. The T stands for tabletop. And if you'd like to take a look at my commissioned miniature paint jobs, or even some of the other stuff in my life like photography or tattooing, which is what I do for my day job, go check it out on Instagram at Art of Wallace. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.